was just like any other day. I was working doing ice cream, and it was on the same street I lived on, so it was a bike ride away. I was about 3 blocks away from my house, and I saw a gentleman pull out in front of me. He grabbed my handlebars and had a gun. He told me to get off my bike and get on my knees. He told me if I didn't, he would kill me. And he sexually assaulted me. It's the first thing that goes through your head is why? Why me? Why didn't he murder me? She had her whole life ahead of her, and I was the one that survived. I had to relive it every day, 25 years. And he did the same thing, even worse to her.
In August of 1996, Debbie Dorian had recently graduated from California State University of Fresno.
There's Debo taking up the heavy stuff. All right, don't drop it, don't drop it.
She lived in the North Creek apartment complex, which is 4 or 5 miles just north of campus.
We had just finished our briefing that we usually have in the morning. I was told that there was a female that was found in her apartment.
Peter Dorian, Debbie's father, and Debbie had made plans that Debbie was to drive to Peter, her father's house, Thursday, August the 22nd. She had planned to arrive around 7 a.m.
She didn't show up, so after a brief amount of time, he went to her apartment.
Knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, and received no answer. He then turned the doorknob and pushed the door open, and it opened, which it shouldn't have because his daughter, Debbie, was very security conscious, would never leave her door unlocked.
He went into the apartment, didn't see her in the living room or dining area or the kitchen, and then went towards the back part of the apartment.
The TV was on, so he began to call for her and received no answer. He then began to look throughout the apartment, and he found the most horrific sight that any parent could encounter. And that was his daughter, Debbie Dorian, lying in the middle of her bedroom floor on the carpet, on her side.
She was naked from the waist down. Her shirt was pulled up.
Her ankles were duct taped. Her hands were duct taped behind her back. And she had duct tape completely covering from the top of her head down to her jaw.
We couldn't see her face. Obviously, she wouldn't have been able to breathe at all.
Peter Dorian did what any parent would do. He thought if he tried to take off the duct tape, she would be able to breathe, which was impossible.
He immediately went to her phone in her apartment. He found that the phone was unplugged. Tried to plug it in, didn't seem to be working. He was very frantic.
Peter Dorian is in such a state of shock, he actually calls his wife, Debbie's stepmother, first. She's the one who calls 911.
Go ahead, ma'am. My husband just called and went to his daughter's apartment. She didn't show, and he found her dead in her apartment. Okay, tell me what your daughter's name is. Her name is Deborah Dorian.
And then Peter makes another devastating phone call to his ex, Debbie's mom, Sarah Loven.
Well, he was just, straight on with, Deborah's been killed. I ran screaming through the house. No, 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 no. And that's all I could say was no, no, no. It just feels like somebody took a great big spoon and carved out your heart.
Debbie was working towards her degree in economics, but she was also thinking about going to graduate school.
When I spoke to Peter, he said that they were going to go to some other colleges to look at ideology programs because Debbie was looking at following in her dad's footsteps as being an ideologist.
That particular apartment complex was inhabited with numerous college students. It's an area where that type of crime does not occur.
Vince Savala spent 18 years with Fresno police and had just joined the California Bureau of Investigation before getting the call about Debbie Dorian's murder.
This is where Debbie lived. It must have been crawling with investigators.
Crawling with investigators, quarreling with people who were worried.
You had crowds gathering.
There were crowds, yes.
According to police, Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
There was no forced entry that we could see. I didn't see major disturbance in the living room or kitchen area.
August 1996, my title was a scene criminalist, and I remember going to the scene. It looked like she had just made a sandwich, so the sandwich was there with some Doritos. I also remember going into the kitchen. There was a bag of Fruit Loop cereal that had been open, it was ripped open.
A couple of things are possibilities. One, she knew this individual and let him in. Two, he displayed some kind of a weapon immediately, and she complied with his commands to allow him into her residence.
Obviously, one of the things that does come to mind is whether or not it's a serial type of thing, mostly because of the sophistication of how she was taped.
The coroner determined Debbie's cause of death was due to suffocation because the duct tape had covered her entire head.
In situations like this, the pathologist that did the examination, he knew right off the bat that he was going to do a sexual assault kit just because of the way she was found.
There was semen found on the victim, and then there was saliva sample that was found, and they came from the same source. They were the same individual.
This profile was, as soon as possible, uploaded into the National DNA Databank. There was no hit.
In 1996, I was a lieutenant in the Fresno Police Department, assigned as the public information officer. It was frustrating that we had DNA evidence, but we had no one to tie it to.
I knew it was a tough one, and so I immediately volunteered anything I could do to help them with that case before I took it over.
What made you think, oh, this is tough?
Because they were hitting brick walls left and right. It was a whodunit. And those are the most difficult homicides to solve.
But an eyewitness is about to offer a major clue.
He had seen an individual approach Debbie's store.
A short conversation to the effect, "Oh, hi, how are you?"
There is some very evil, demented predator out there.
You're thinking, we have a murderer on the loose.
We didn't know if, when, and where he was going to strike again.
Strike it rich. Advertise in the Fresno Bee Classified.
8.7 KRZR, Hanford, Fresno. I'm Dave Rogers.
It's the tragic story of a young woman's life that ended too early.
Debbie's murder was immediately covered by every television station, every radio station in this area. Front page news.
The Debbie Dorian case definitely stayed with me. The horrific way that she was killed, and then the terrible impact on her family, and especially her father.
Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
Just the thought of him finding her like that, it's just really unimaginable.
And bad news, as they say, spreads like wildfire. Just as the whole town is hit by the news of Debbie Dorian's murder, her childhood friends, Katina and Heather, are learning about it too.
I heard it on the news. It showed her apartment, and they gave her name.
Family members and neighbors say Debbie Dorian, a Fresno State student, worked hard and had plans to specialize in audiology.
And I couldn't believe it, so I immediately called Katina.
And she goes, something's happened to Debbie. And I said, Debbie who? Because it wasn't registering with me. And she goes, Debbie, you're Debbie. And she said, Debbie's been murdered. And I slammed the phone down and I lost control.
The fear triggered by Debbie Dorian's murder was felt throughout the entire city of Fresno. But the hardest hit, right here, in and around the campus of Fresno State, where her fellow students were left not just grieving her loss, but grappling with their own fears for their safety.
There was a bubble around Fresno State, you know, and a hush, and people were whispering, and there was a lot of fear.
That's about that time blue light started going up. I mean, just the awareness started going up about not walking to your car by yourself. You know, just all the things that we tell people today just started being said right about that time.
It struck fear into Fresno.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Our parents were worried and everything, yeah. Fresno's a sleepy little farm town.
Fresno's located in the heart of California. We like to say that we're a big city, but we have a small town feel.
Not only is the temperature nice and warm in the summers, but people are wonderful here. And we have a sort of a farming, you know, mentality. And if you're not in ag, you know somebody that's in ag.
We produce more agriculture in Fresno County than anyone else in the world. But we also pride ourselves on just that community feel.
We really have such a sense of family that we feel like, you know, Debbie was not only the Dorian's child, but she was Fresno's child too. It's frightening to think that that this could happen to Debbie, because if it could happen to Debbie Dorian, it could have happened to any of us.
You're on camera, guys! She's the daughter that so many people have, that you were afraid to let go to college because you didn't want anything bad to happen to her.
She had a really bubbly personality. Always ready for a joke and a laugh.
Roll time, Deb. Roller.
Yeah, she was a big people person. We hung out at each other's houses a lot of girl talk. Go to the movies.
We would cruise.
We'd drive, waste gas.
What was on the radio?
I think it was CNC Music Factory, maybe. Pearl Jam, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
103.7 KRZR. Dave Rogers here. Time for your concert update, brought to you by Budweiser.
She went to Fresno State and she studied economics. She was president of the Econ Club.
She sounds like the Golden Girl.
Yeah. There literally is not a day that goes by that I don't think about her.
We tried to determine basically what her lifestyle was like, whether or not she hung around with people who might cause or have some kind of dealings that would cause this to happen.
We formed a timeline of Debbie's actions prior to her murder. Debbie was killed between roughly 12 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on August the 20th, 1996.
One of Debbie's neighbors did report that he had seen an individual approach Debbie's door, and he noticed the individual because he didn't recognize him. He wasn't somebody that was normally in the area.
There appeared to be a short conversation, something to the effect, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And that's all he saw.
But nobody knew who it was. They only had a description of it being a white male, a certain age and height.
With no obvious signs of forced entry, detectives quickly turn their attention to any white males that Debbie knows, including her boyfriend, John Thomas.
I knew he would be a suspect. I mean, it's obvious. The first people they look at are people that they care about and that they're close to.
There's always that side of you that says, well, if he wasn't involved, he's going through some traumatic experiences right now. But as your job is, you have to interview him.
My name is John Thomas. As of August 1996, we've been dating approximately 2.5 years. Debbie was very outgoing, very extroverted, fun to be around. I was doing contract work for the U.S. Forest Service northeast of Fresno. I left town approximately a week before she was murdered.
Since a sexual assault was involved in this murder, we had to ask John Thomas some tough sexually related questions.
You actually get angry because, and I know why they're asking the questions, but it's almost like a character assassination. It's hard to hear things said about this person that you love that's been murdered.
We were able to determine that John Thomas, at the time of Debbie's murder, was assigned to fighting a fire in Northern California. I asked for a DNA sample from John Thomas, and he voluntarily provided one. He was eliminated as being a donor of the DNA.
The last time I saw her was 10 days before she was killed. It was John's graduation. She'd had her hair done and a new outfit, and she was beautiful.
That would be the last videotape of her, and they'd be some of the last pictures taken of her. It's hard to look at him today still, so.
John Thomas is fully cooperating and able to offer investigators critical information about Debbie in the weeks leading up to her murder. Turns out, Debbie had been looking for a roommate.
That sent up a really big red flag.
She put ads and flyers up, which was pretty typical. I think a couple people had fallen through, so I know that, that could be stressful.
I think she was getting desperate. She needed to get some finances so that she could pay her bills. She needed somebody soon.
Could it be that someone who had come to visit her apartment did this? That became something that concerned us.
She had some papers on her dining room table with names on it.
A list of prospective roommates becomes a list of people of interest.
She opened the door for somebody.
So who was on the other side of that door?
A police spokesman says the department has 2 detectives working full-time on the Debbie Dorian murder case.
They had a tremendous amount of pressure because the police had very little to go on. It's not usually a one-time thing. Somebody doesn't commit a one-time horrendous crime. They commit it again.
And one lead jumps right to the top of the pile, her search for a roommate.
She had put ads in the paper, she had posted flyers at Fresno State, and she had a list of people's names on her table.
Anytime you have a list of people that you believe have had recent contact with the victim, those people are going to be persons of interest.
A few of the names I remember specifically, one was Alvin, one was Laura, and one was Nick or Rick.
There was a person named Alvin who had actually made contact with her in person.
Alvin called the police department after he heard the news and said, hey, I was supposed to rent a room from the girl that was murdered. I was at the apartment. He had provided a deposit and signed an agreement with Debbie to take the room, but he hadn't received a key yet.
Alvin doesn't fit the neighbor's description of the white man he saw outside Debbie's apartment. Alvin is black, in his early 20s, and over 6 feet tall.
Detective Garcia, the interview with Alvin. What did you do when you went there? I knocked on the door. She invited me in. What time was it that you got there? It was 6, 7.
We thought it was a little unusual that she would have a male roommate.
It was strange because she didn't rent to men, but I know how desperate she was to get a roommate.
What do you think about living with someone who's got a boyfriend?
Actually, I thought it was kind of really weird. But I didn't I felt like, there was a problem. That's her problem, not mine.
A background was conducted and it was determined that he was a sex registrant in the state of California.
That definitely sent some alarm bells going off in investigators' heads because of the circumstances around Debbie's death.
That must have made you think, oh boy.
Absolutely.
And then he tells you something odd about going back to the apartment.
He went back because he was concerned, since Debbie didn't answer the door, that maybe she was taking his money.
He told me something about the door knob. Do you remember what that was? On Wednesday night, I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. The blinds were open. The TV was on from what I could see on the wall. And when I knocked on the door, nobody answered. I tried the door. Unlike most of the time, the door was unlocked.
Of course, this raises big questions. He admits turning the door handle and finding it unlocked, but he says he doesn't enter. That statement must have struck you as odd.
Absolutely.
So you're questioning Alvin about his alibi, and he gives you another name.
Yes.
And that is?
Maurice.
Alvin and Maurice Dixon worked at the same place, a business called Grocery Outlet. They were friends at that time.
Dixon at that time was 28 years old. He was an Army veteran. He didn't have any criminal record.
He transported Alvin to Debbie Dorian's apartment on several occasions. And on some of those occasions, he accompanied Alvin to the front door of Debbie Dorian's apartment. However, he never entered. never met Debbie Dorian, never been inside her apartment, and as I recall, never really had a conversation with her.
So you've never seen this girl, don't know what she looks like, never talked to her?
No, not from all this started happening at first. You know, I never seen her, just heard her voice on the phone. And then recently, like when we were talking, I've seen a picture on the news.
During the interview, he stuck to the story that he'd never met Debbie. We started getting into some of his sexual background.
I'd like to, you know, go over to her house and check your things. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine. I think I have the receipt for it in my checkbook. I bought 2 things of duct tape to tie up the ends of the rope.
He said that the only duct tape he ever had was for a punching bag that he had at his home. That was a little suspicious to us, that he would volunteer that kind of information. He wasn't told we were looking specifically at duct tape, that we were only looking at bondage type of things.
Dixon says he had been asked specifically about duct tape in an interview with another detective, which is why he brought it up.
What made you mention that? Somebody mentioned duct tape or something like that. Do you have any duct tape, or do you know anything about duct tape or something?
When was that?
That was when I first came to question.
But investigators' eyebrows are officially raised.
We were able to get consent to search his home, found the punching bag that he had used. It had duct tape around it.
It didn't match up with the duct tape that was used on Debbie's body, or that was located on Debbie's body. The DNA from Debbie's body was compared to Alvin, and he was excluded as being the contributor to that DNA.
Alvin was eliminated. Maurice Dixon's sample was also submitted to see if we could exclude, and he could not be excluded.
It didn't add up because he said he'd never been in her apartment. So the fact that he said that and that the DNA at least had a preliminary match, I think everyone thought he wasn't telling the truth.
Our investigation is that you were the one that did this.
No, I am not the one who did this. I have nothing to do with this at all. How many times I have to keep telling you, I did not go inside this apartment. I do not know this person. I never met her.
As a result of that test, Maurice Dixon was arrested and charged with the murder of Debbie Dorian.
When Dixon arrived home from work, undercover officers swooped in and he was arrested with his hands up right in the middle of the street.
He pleaded not guilty. His bail was set at over $1 million. I think the feeling was that the case had been solved. Most people thought it was over.
I think it's great. I mean, hopefully it's the right person.
But this case is far from over. As investigators keep digging, they're about to get a big surprise.
It was a surprise to the police, to the media, to everyone you could think of.
Maurice, you have to understand something, okay? You're under arrest for murder.
An arrest was made in the death of Deborah Dorian.
Police, out of nowhere, they made this arrest of a man named Maurice Dixon, who had gone to the apartment with his friend, who was responding to Debbie and her advertising for a roommate.
Residents were shocked that he is charged with Dorian's murder.
Yeah, very surprised. Yeah, this is quite neighborhood. You don't expect something like that. And like I said, especially coming from him.
Now, Dixon's arrest comes just 1 year after the O.J. Simpson verdict, the so-called trial of the century.
It was a vote of not guilty for O.J. Simpson and a vote of no confidence in the LAPD.
LAPD guilty!
At the time, the general public, especially in California, was more aware of DNA, but there was also more scrutiny of police investigations.
Well, actually, I don't want to go into race, but just knowing the background of a black man in society being arrested and the scared feeling that our family had with Maurice actually being in the system, I mean, really brought a lot of anguish to our family.
There was a lot of racialized tensions in the air at that time. O.J. Simpson's verdict had just come in. That came on the heels of Rodney King.
Hey, are we live? But to the people of South Central LA, that 30-hour rampage was more revolt than riot.
there was a lot of pointing fingers, but the police had reason to be looking at Maurice.
Oh, I definitely think there was a reason to look at him. He had been there in a very close proximity to the time that she was last heard from. And so, you know, he was definitely somebody that was on the list.
Maurice Dixon walked into court shackled at the hands and feet.
After Maurice Dixon was arraigned, police continued to investigate. So one of the things they did was conduct a more sophisticated DNA test.
You have to remember, at that time, DNA technology was changing rapidly. Investigators initially relied on one test that compared 6 markers, but were about to start using a more precise test, looking at 13 markers, similar to what labs use today.
It was a matter of weeks between the first test and the second DNA test, the more discriminating one.
That second, more powerful test reveals the DNA from the Debbie Dorian crime scene does not match Maurice Dixon. He is cleared and all charges are dropped.
Maurice Dixon had been in custody for a little more than 2 weeks. Tonight, he is free, and the investigation into the Debbie Dorian murder case returns to square one.
The fact that that DNA did not match, I think, was a surprise to the police, to Debbie's family, to the community, to everyone you could think of, except for Maurice Dixon, because he knew he didn't do it.
Right now, we don't want to comment at anything at this time. We're just happy that he's being released.
So after Maurice Dixon was released from jail, I interviewed him. He told us that, you know, he was living with the shadow over his life, that there was this air of suspicion around him. He was potentially facing the death penalty for a crime he didn't commit.
People, you know, stare at me and accusing me, but not knowing, you know, the full details of what happened.
I totally understand his feelings. I understand the family's feelings, but it was all part of my investigation.
We know that there's someone out there that have committed this crime, and basically the city is afraid again. We know it's hard on her family also, because they have to go through it again, waiting to see who they may arrest next.
I just, okay, we're back to square one. We need to rethink this. I work with children, and I didn't want to be emotionally upset when I'm working with children. So for my lunch breaks, I go and cry for 20 minutes, and then I'd come back and we're okay for a while. You know, I just had to keep going, yeah.
Our future's been taken away. We will not see a wedding. We will not see grandchildren. She will not get to have a life. The one thing we can do, and the one thing we strive to do, is to get the person who did this.
Every time something like this happens, it's like pulling the scab off a wound.
Peter Dorian, her father, was very committed to keeping the case in the mind of the community, in the mind of media.
I would hope that a person would have the morality to come forward if they know something just because they want to help or they feel maybe a little guilt about something.
We put flyers everywhere. We put them all around Fresno State. We put them in all the businesses. The governor's reward was $50,000. Then our family reward was $10,000. So it's quite a big reward.
I can't live with myself unless we've done everything we can do to help solve the crime.
He was very active at first. I think it became so overwhelming that it just hurt too much to keep going. And so he decided he would retreat.
I remember receiving a telephone call from Peter, and he told me, he says, Vince, he says, I can't do it anymore. She'll forever be in my heart, but I cannot hold out hope any longer.
But Debbie's mom, Sarah, pushes forward, holding investigator Vince Zavala to a promise.
I made a commitment to her. I would never quit. And she asked me, well, what about when you retire? I says, well, I won't retire. I won't retire until I solve it. I've been a law enforcement officer for a little over 40 years, and I farmed all those 40 years in addition to working. With a cold case, you pour your heart and your soul into it and all the time you have, and hopefully you solve the case. It entails a lot of patience, just like farming. No matter what you're doing, you have to continue to farm, or all the time will be for nothing. So if I had to come out at night and work on the case during the day, I'd come out at night.
Vince Zavala is the man you want on your side. And when he gets a hold of something, he doesn't let it go.
Sarah often said that solving Debbie's murder was like a million-piece puzzle. If you keep putting one piece together, two pieces together, three pieces, you're eventually going to get a picture of who murdered her daughter.
And some of those pieces are about to fall into place.
Fresno police are looking for a Caucasian male in his late 20s, early 30s.
Thanks to a string of terrifying attacks just an hour from Fresno.
We feel he's a predator. He could strike at any time.
This was a person who was repeating.
And then the break investigators have been waiting for.
This guy is still around. We've got a shot at getting this guy down.
So this case became personal to Vince Zavala. He was determined to find Debbie's killer.
Some of the investigators on this case continue doggedly to work on it.
That's Fresno. You know the Fresno PD never gave up. You know how frustrating it must be for them to just wake up every day and not know who did it, why did they do it, how did they do it.
Were there moments where you lost hope of solving the crime?
I never lost hope. I always had faith, but there were many, many times I was frustrated.
It stayed with the department, stayed with me, even to this day. There was this desire to solve the case, but we needed evidence.
Our investigation of the murder of Debbie Dorian focused basically on the Fresno area. Then I received a telephone call from our Fresno Regional Laboratory and was told that there was a DNA case-to-case hit.
Remember, the DNA from Debbie's case is already in that national DNA database, CODIS. And now, finally, after 6 years, another case is a match.
There was a lead where the DNA in Debbie's case matched suspect DNA in a sexual assault in Visalia. Visalia is about an hour away from Fresno to the south.
So in July 1999, it was a sexual assault occurred on the south side of Visalia. Over the period of the next 3 years, several other similar crimes occurred in Visalia. I believe these crimes were committed by the same suspect.
In each of those cases, the suspect was described as a white male adult, in his 30s generally, from 5'6" to maybe close to about 6 foot, medium-sized build.
So his MO would be that he'd find a young woman, late teens, early 20s. He'd find her alone. He produced the gun and he told them that he'd shoot them if they didn't do what he said.
He was described as either wearing a bandana over his face or he was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up over his face. The victims described him as wearing black pants and black shoes, which eventually led us to think that maybe he was involved in the restaurant business.
Police aren't able to collect physical evidence from every assault, but in one case, they get lucky, collecting DNA from the suspect that will become the critical puzzle piece linking these assaults to Debbie Dorian's murder.
Jane Doe, number 1, was riding her bike home from work. A man approached her with a gun.
Tells her to get on her knees, fondles her under her clothing.
She was able to show investigators where the sexual assault took place, so they were able to collect DNA from that area.
And now they know that whoever left that DNA is also the person who murdered Debbie Dorian. They just don't know who it is.
It brought it to a whole new level because now we got a guy that is running around in the Visalia area that has killed before. It gets everybody's attention.
Once I heard of the case-to-case hit, I was so excited I jumped in my car and immediately went to Visalia. This guy is still around. We've got a shot at getting this guy now.
Working together, the team in Fresno and Visalia conduct background checks, interviews. They collect and test well over 100 DNA samples, but they just can't seem to hit their mark. They were chasing what seemed like a ghost, and the clock was ticking.
Once we had exhausted our leads in Visalia, we were desperate.
You never know when he's going to get the urge to hit again. You never know if he's going to escalate or whether he's going to go back to something else. He could strike at any time.
There were times I couldn't sleep at night because what can we do? So as the years go by, I said, you know what, we have to preserve the cases that we have.
You know, statute of limitations on sex crimes is 10 years in California, and we were approaching the 10-year mark.
So the clock is running out. The prosecutors decide, well, we have the DNA.
We have a commonality. We can identify this DNA profile.
We just don't have a name.
We just don't have a name.
Lieutenant Pewter wrote a John Doe warrant for the DNA profile, and that was very instrumental because what it did was preserve the statute of limitations.
The warrant officially stops the clock on the statute of limitations. It's the first of its kind in the county, say authorities, buying the team more time to find their John Doe.
We knew that if we could find this person, that we really had him, which, you know, is a big part of the puzzle.
A puzzle that's about to get some help from an unlikely source, a serial killer.
I'm sure the detectives back then couldn't imagine this. It's crazy.
I really felt this was going to crack the case.
A killer with decades-old secrets is in their sights.
Sorry, but we got to check all the boxes off.
And the victim, the survivor, who promised to take her attacker down.
All I remember saying is, I'm going to get you. You're not going to get away with it.
What went through your head when you realized the man who assaulted you is also charged with murdering somebody?
Why didn't he murder me?
Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
If it could happen to Debbie Dorian, it could have happened to any of us.
This case is often referred to as a million-piece puzzle. This is just a sample, right?
This is a fraction of what was collected. Trace evidence, fibers, fingerprints.
We have to find this monster out there.
Have you ever seen that girl? Nope. You don't know her?
On the surface, he did seem like, you know, your next door neighbor.
His alter ego, Nick Steele, online.
More of a fantasy.
He talked about his bedroom looking similar to 50 Shades of Grey.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Her name was Debbie Dorian. You didn't kill her, did you?
Here's this boogeyman of your nightmares, and yet everyone described him as the guy who could be your neighbor.
Who was your neighbor?
Yeah, I hope you find him. I hope we do catch the guy.
Here in this quiet city of Visalia, nestled in the Sierra Nevadas, the same man who brutally murdered 22-year-old Debbie Dorian begins a brazen string of sexual assaults against other women. One of them is attacked riding her bike home from work. One tries to escape the predator by cutting through a field. And another, just a high school student at the time, attacked as she was walking home from school. Another is assaulted here while waiting for a bus. All of these women's identities have been shielded from the public by law enforcement, each of them referred to simply as Jane Doe. But tonight, for the first time, one of these brave survivors is stepping out of the shadows. We're rolling. You were Jane Doe #1 for many years.
Yeah.
But you're comfortable now with saying at least your first name.
At least my first name, yeah.
And you're comfortable going on camera.
I wasn't for a long time.
And when we sat down for her first interview, she told us she was ready to reclaim her voice, taking back what she says was stolen from her at just 19 years old when she moved to the Central Valley of California. It was your love of horses that drew you here.
Yes.
You kind of had your future mapped out in your head.
I wanted to be a horse trainer.
And you were an independent young woman.
Yes. Or I thought.
And then you're riding your bike home from work one day.
I was about 3 blocks away from my house, and I saw a gentleman pull out of a street. It was 10:30 at night. There was nobody on the road. He grabbed my handlebars and had a gun.
And you saw the gun?
Yeah. Told me to get off my bike and get on my knees. He told me if I didn't, he would kill me. And I believed him. I was 19. You have a gun to your head and you do what you're told. And the whole time, all I remember saying is, I'm gonna get you. You're not gonna get away with it.
That's feisty.
Yeah.
With a gun pointed at you.
I didn't know what else to do.
Beth says the man concealed his face. She could only see his eyes in the dark. She was sexually assaulted. And then she says the man fled.
He told me to stay where I am, count to 10, and turn around and go home. If I turned around or tried to come and find him, he knew where I lived and he would kill me.
He told you he knew where you lived. That is so frightening.
By the time I got to my apartment, I threw my bike on the grass, called my sister. About a minute later, 4 detectives and police and everybody was in my apartment.
Jane Doe had the presence of mind to quickly report. Reporting, patrol officers were able to quickly locate the crime scene and collect the DNA evidence.
And then over the course of the next 3 years, we had another 3 different crimes, all of similar MO. And really, it wasn't until maybe the 3rd or the 4th crime that we realized we had the same suspect and we had a pattern.
The DNA collected in Beth's case is compared to other crimes in the National Criminal Database, called CODIS. And that's when things take an unexpected turn. That case-to-case hit.
Whoever left the DNA at Debbie Dorian's crime scene committed that sexual assault. Knowing he was in the Visalia area was the first big boost we had since the murder of Debbie Dorian.
Just like yours. What went through your head when you realized the man who assaulted you is also charged with murdering somebody?
Why didn't he murder me? That's the first thing that came to my head. Because I asked when the murder was. It was 96, and mine was 99.
Why do you think you survived?
God only knows. I don't know.
And as the years clicked by?
I would get a phone call every 5 years or so saying my case is still open, and they're like, oh, okay, well, thanks for the call, and that was it.
The thought that we would never catch this guy was not something I wanted to live with, you know. For the victims in Visalia, and then for Dorian family, it's something that I wanted to do everything in my power to find this guy. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
The string of attacks on women seems to suddenly end. But even though the perpetrator appears to have stopped, Vince Zavala won't.
In the Debbie Dorian case, we had over 286 pieces of evidence submitted for analyzation. Delia moved up the ranks and eventually became the director for the entire Fresno Regional Laboratory. Whenever I needed help pushing evidence through, I would call Delia.
He was very persistent. He would bring additional references, maybe registered sex offender cases that sort of look similar.
We collected DNA from over 146 individuals and compared to evidence left at Debbie Dorian's crime scene.
146 DNA tests. And that's on top of the mountain of evidence Vince has collected throughout the years and shared with new detectives who would join the case.
This is just a sample, right?
This is a fraction of what was collected at the evidence warehouse. It's just shelf upon shelf of evidence.
In 2018, after nearly 2 decades of investigating, this now very cold case is about to heat up, thanks to the arrest of another serial predator.
We have identified Joseph James DeAngelo as the sole suspect in the Visalia Ransacker crime series. The Visalia Ransacker case was really kind of criminal lore throughout Visalia, throughout my entire career. Ultimately, that entire case would become the Golden State Killer.
We begin with that bombshell arrest. They say cutting-edge DNA testing allowed them to make a match.
I heard like everyone else, and then a thought came to my mind. Why couldn't we use the same DNA technology used to capture the Golden State Killer on Debbie Dorian's homicide case? Visalia Police Department worked on that task force, and I knew a lot of those detectives, and that started the ball rolling.
A very dear friend of mine who's the retired Sacramento County DA, Anne Marie Schubert, who was just an essential part of solving the Golden State Killer case.
We found the needle in the haystack, and it was right here in Sacramento.
She called me and said, hey, we need to come down to Fresno because this technology is amazing. I'll bring my staff. And so then we started to work together with them.
Sacramento County, their DA's office, gave us a blueprint how to move forward with this new investigative technique.
They are able to come up with family members who are likely to be related to this suspect.
You can build out essentially a family tree and then start investigating backwards to see who are the relatives that could potentially be a suspect.
Within maybe a week, we got a lead.
And bells start to go off.
Exactly. A witness had seen a suspicious male outside of Debbie's apartment on the day in question. And as I read that description and I'm looking at the photograph of the suspect, I'm like, this is our guy. This really is.
The picture matched up to the descriptions. I'm like Mark, it was like, this is him.
Now 567 to the arrest team, stand by.
This is a pomegranate orchard. This is what I farm. I've been farming probably a good majority of my life. Farming is much like investigating cold cases because there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of hard work, and you don't know what you're going to end up with. You got to be very patient, watch it grow, and hopefully you get fruit.
After nearly 40 years of being a detective and a farmer, the time finally comes for Vince Zavala to retire from his day job. But there is one unsolved case he can't let go of. It was tearing at your heart.
Absolutely, but I'd made a promise to Sarah. When I retired, I talked to Chief Dyer because we were friends.
I realized as a police chief, there's more than I can do, and it's bring Vince back.
He allowed me to come back as a reserve police officer, which gave me police officer powers when I was on duty, and that was important.
But no police officer pay.
I told him I didn't want to be paid.
With that genetic genealogy DNA match in hand, Vince was more hopeful than ever that his years of investigative work were about to bear fruit.
Probably the best lead we've had in over 23 years. This could very well be our guy.
They are able to take this genealogical DNA and ultimately they came up with a name, Nicky Dwayne Stain.
He married, had a couple of kids. His work history was very solid. No criminal past that we could see. This is a normal guy, but then you think, well, a normal guy could have committed this. That's why we haven't been able to find him. He was living in Visalia, in the city.
He raised his kids, was at the PTA. His focus was the family, and he did work for charity organizations.
Now that detectives have a name, they want to talk to this guy. They discover that he's been divorced and working at a food court in the local mall.
Turns out that early hunch that their suspect may work in the restaurant business was spot on.
We were all hands on deck. Let's do what we got to do. Let's get a DNA sample from him. Our primary mission was to look for anything that he would publicly discard that we could obtain a DNA profile from.
So we thought a trash run might be the best opportunity. My partner and I dressed down in plain clothes, put on a vest as if we were part of solid waste. We removed the trash cans from the street and replaced them with the empty trash cans.
It's called a surreptitious trash dump because once he throws it away outside on the street, it's free game.
We found male razor blades that appeared used and were discarded, and so we sent that up to be tested to see if it had any DNA on it.
I was excited, but I'd been excited before, so that kept me from totally jumping in.
But 2 weeks later, his phone rings.
I was at home. It was the middle of the day. I put it on speakerphone.
I said, hey, Vince, you got to sit down because I have news. We got the guy. It's him.
My wife was close to me. Once she heard it, she cried. So did I. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more emotional. I'm pretty old now. I was happy.
It was good. It was a lot of years of work.
Nikki Stain was our 147th individual who we obtained a DNA sample from for comparison, and he was the match.
Okay, you're good. We're out of the car.
Their next stop is that shopping mall in Visalia to surprise Nikki Stain with a visit.
There's a couple of customers, Chris.
You don't feel comfortable with the
We'll just wait, hang back.
Yeah, they're off.
I don't see how we're going to be able to talk to him over the counter. We went to his workplace asking for him. Hi, is Mr. Stain in?
Mr. Stain in?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Stain. My name is Vince Zavala. It's Bob Sodas. We're doing some grunt work here. We're looking into a matter that happened a while ago. Take 5 minutes. Okay. That's fine. We begin to ask him some questions. Have you ever seen that girl? No, you've never committed any violence against her.
No, I haven't done anything. I don't know her, so I wouldn't know how to.
Yeah. So have you never committed violence against anybody?
No violence against anybody.
But Vince hasn't waited this long and come this far to take no for an answer.
Her name was Debbie Dorian. She was found murdered. You didn't kill her, did you? No.
Nikki Stain denied knowing Debbie.
During our conversation with Nikki Stain, I told him, I says, look, we've been asking everybody we talked to if they would voluntarily give us an oral swab to compare to evidence that's at this scene. But if you haven't been there, I mean, you know, it's just kind of a mundane thing.
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know, that sounds like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Stain refuses to turn over his DNA, and the interview seems to come to an end.
We thanked him for his time. As we were walking, Nikki Stain stops. He looks me in the eye, and he says,
Yeah, I hope you find him.
I hope we do catch the guy, and thank you. Have a good day.
We had an arrest team standing by the exterior door
257 to the arrest team, stand by.
where he was going to have to re-enter the mall back to his place of work.
Nikki Stain.
Hi.
Put your hands behind your back.
Turn around, man.
5 seconds later, he's arrested.
He was ultimately arrested at that time on the sexual assaults from the Visalia cases.
Nothing on this
Shortly after Nikki Stain was handcuffed, I made a telephone call to Sarah.
He called me and he says, we actually have him. We have him in custody. And I said, really? Really? This is really something. Yeah, called all my friends, called everybody. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Yeah, it's really happening.
Go and have a seat.
As police begin talking to Nikki Stain, they're about to discover that he is anything but the guy next door.
If you have my phone, you'll be able to see that because it has like 400 videos on it.
Turn around, man.
After Nikki Stain is arrested for the sexual assaults in Visalia, he's brought into the police department to be questioned.
Go ahead and have a seat in that chair right over here. Okay.
And to the surprise of detectives, he seems to have a lot to say.
Nick, do you know why you're here today?
Yeah, I do know why I'm here.
From the beginning of the interview, he knew why he was there for the Visalia cases, and we just let him talk.
I know I've done a couple things that here in Visalia that I shouldn't have done.
So when you say a couple things in Visalia, what are the couple things that you're talking about?
Oh, there's a couple times that I approached women that out on the street that, you know, and stuff, and coerced them into having some kind of oral. And so those are things I shouldn't have done.
Against their will?
Yes.
Detectives then walk Nikki Stain through each of the sexual assaults he's accused of.
Suspect pulled sweatshirt over his face and then placed handgun in her side. He escorted the victim and concealed their location behind some bushes. Requested the victim unbutton her shirt.
That might have happened. I think that one happened.
She was standing alone waiting to catch a bus. Suspect approached the victim. Suspect told the victim not to run or he would kill her.
I say that sounds like me, but I don't think that was me.
The worst thing that any defense attorney can hear is when you're questioned about a crime, it's like, well, I don't know, but it sounds like me.
Do you recall what you wore during those?
I recall wearing a hoodie or something like that.
With my demeanor, I think really brought some comfort to him to really open up about our sexual assault cases.
So, you know, I kind of like had some bad things that go on in my life, and I can say that I've had a problem with I guess, sex or sex addiction. If you have my phone, you'll be able to see that because it has like 400 videos on it of probably 100 different women.
During my interview, he did mention that he began sleeping with prostitutes starting in high school, all the way up until his arrest.
I had so many encounters with women. You know, I'm talking about like paid for encounters or this or that, or like start chatting with them and then all the next thing we know, we're doing something.
He did brag, seemed proud about his sexual promiscuity with prostitutes.
I'm a single guy for the last 2 years, and it seems like really the only women that pay me any attention are the younger ones.
He was happy to talk about himself and all the sexual things that he had done in his past. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I'll tell you the truth, I don't really think that hiring an escort or having a sugar babe or anything like that, I personally don't think that that's a wrong thing.
He talked about his bedroom looking similar to 50 Shades of Grey.
I had saw pictures of those types of dark rooms on the internet. I said I wanted to paint it that way. Now everybody who sees it says it's 50 Shades of Grey.
When they did the search, and he had these silk robes in his closet and sex toys.
During our investigation, we learned that Nikki Stain was operating an Airbnb operation out of his home. He would also rent rooms out to younger females. He talked about providing for these young females.
Investigators also find what appears to be a fake Facebook profile where Nikki Stain calls himself Nick Steele and claims to be chairman of a Fortune 500 company. His alter ego, Nick Steele,
yes,
online, pointed in a different direction.
Yes, I think more of a fantasy.
He also posted videos of himself on that Facebook page, going out to party.
Okay, I'm going out tonight.
Was he sort of baiting women online?
Oh, I don't believe so. I think it was more about, this is me. I'm capable of this. I'm so attractive. I'm so, my proudness is such that, these things happen in my life.
During our search warrant at his residence, we located that he had a wall plug camera in one of the roommates' bathrooms that was associated to a younger female.
There were also allegations of peeping Tom.
Yes. It's kind of a voyeurism, obviously, and then it steps into inappropriate actions.
Inappropriate actions that land Nikki Stain with a misdemeanor peeping charge. Stain pleads not guilty to the charge, which is eventually dropped.
He definitely had some sexual deviances.
But as Nikki Stain's defense attorney points out, sexual deviance doesn't necessarily equate to murder.
It was separate and apart. Usually people move forward as far as the seriousness of their crimes. And so it was odd that there was this homicide, but then later there's peeping Tom activity and assaults.
The violence seemed to de-escalate.
Yes.
And back in that interrogation room, when the conversation turns to Debbie Dorian's murder, Nikki Stain's not done talking yet.
The detectives there today before you guys arrested me, he brought up an interesting case. One that, it does shock me.
When detectives show up at the mall to confront Nikki Stain at his workplace, they ask him about Debbie Dorian. He claims he's never seen her before.
Have you ever seen that girl? Nope. You don't know her? Okay.
But when they get him into the interrogation room, he has a different story.
The detectives there today before you guys arrested me, he brought up an interesting case. I was with that girl, several times and stuff like that.
You were?
Yes, I was. So, to be honest with you, she was, I picked her up in Fresno there on the streets there at one time. After I dropped her off, I thought that was going to be the last time I seen of her. Okay. And then she, found her way to my workplace, on other occasions and asked me if I, would want to again.
He acknowledged that he did know Debbie and that he had been to her apartment multiple times for sex.
The stunning allegation that Stain and Debbie had met for consensual sex is something prosecutors dispute, but his new defense team will now try to prove. Brian Pinto is the defense's lead investigator.
I spent a lot of hours in the jail with Nikki Stain. He's probably one of the most intelligent clients I've ever had, but he's also one of the most complicated and mysterious.
Brian attempted to track down coworkers and acquaintances from Stain's past to back up his story.
Did you have any verifiable evidence that they had met before or that this was consensual in any way?
A lot of people that he gave me that would potentially back that story up were people that he worked with, that he only remembered first names.
There was some evidence that she may have gone into his place of work, but, we weren't able to really chase those folks down because it was so long ago.
There was nothing to support that she had come into contact with him in any other way. It was completely concocted.
After his police interview, Nikki Stain is booked, fingerprinted, and now that he's under arrest, has no choice but to turn over his DNA. The authorities reach out to Beth, who spent years as Jane Doe number 1, with the news she never expected to get.
They told me that they got him. Say that again. It took me a couple times for them to tell me that they got him and that there was going to be a press conference the next day.
It was the last press conference that I held as a police chief, so it meant a lot to me.
Nikki Dwayne Stain is the primary suspect in the rape and murder of Debbie Dorian.
I locked myself in my room and I watched it. And I bawled my eyes out. And all of those emotions that came back hard.
Nikki Stain is every woman's nightmare.
And what did you mean by that?
Nikki Stain looks like an average guy. He looks like a normal person.
He blends into the background.
Yeah, he blends in.
Almost 12,000 days of waiting, searching, hoping, disappointments, and frustrations. What this arrest has finished is the struggle to always be searching.
Nikki Stain is charged with 4 counts of sexual assault in the Visalia attacks and for the murder of Debbie Dorian. In 2020, the Fresno DA's office takes the lead on prosecuting the cases. Stain pleads not guilty to all the charges.
I'm the City Hall and Courts reporter at ABC 30 Action News here in Fresno. It was definitely a big story to walk into as a 22-year-old just a few months out of college. Live at 5, clear to proceed. Nikki Stain could face... The contrast between the two sides of this courtroom really could not have been any different. On the right side of this courtroom, you had Deborah Miller and Caitlin Drake, two very straight-to-the-point senior deputy district attorneys. And on the other side, you had Jane Bolger, somebody who really believes in defending her client and protecting the process that everybody in this country is entitled to. Jane was the defense attorney of the very first court case I ever covered. And at one point, Jane had asked me how old I was. And when I told her, she said, "Gabe, I have pants older than you." It was the fall of 2023 when this preliminary hearing started, but in so many ways that courtroom went back to 1996.
The judge orders that no civilian witnesses can be shown on camera.
I put on the neighbor of who had seen the white male at Debbie's doorstep on that Tuesday.
He basically knocked on the door, and it wasn't a confrontational kind of encounter, but she let him in.
Nikki Stain matches the description, but makes you wonder whether or not the person that was seen in her apartment was Nikki Stain.
One of the items of evidence that I presented was the list that was located at Debbie's apartment on her kitchen table, which appeared to be a list of potential roommates. And what does it say by number 6?
By number 6, it has the name Nick, and then scratched out or Rick, and then it says we'll call Tuesday to 12 o'clock.
We'll call Tuesday, 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
What I believe happened is that Nikki Stain called Debbie on Tuesday, said, "I would like to come by and look at the apartment." She said, "Sure," gave him the address, and he showed up on her doorstep, and she let him in. I put Peter Dorian on the stand.
After years of not speaking publicly about his daughter's case, Peter Dorian has to recount those horrible moments when he finds her in her apartment.
What did you see when you entered Debbie's bedroom?
She was lying on the floor.
Was she moving?
No.
Is there anything else about Debbie that you noticed that morning?
Well, she was lying face up. Her mouth and nose had been taped shut with some gray colored tape, so that prevented her from breathing.
We had 2 of the sexual assault victims from Visalia testify at the preliminary hearing.
When you saw him in the courtroom, did anything register?
The eyes and the voice. The eyes and the voice, you're always going to remember that voice.
What went through your mind when you heard it?
That's it. Holy crap, that's him.
She was able to describe what happened to her in the courtroom in front of Nikki Stain. It was something to watch.
How dare you be able to go on living knowing what you did, that you have destroyed who knows how many people's lives, and you can continue your life like nothing happened. How dare you?
When prosecutors and the defense said that she was free to go, she just sat there and she wept. You could tell that she has never walked away from this, that it has been with her every single day.
And prosecutors have one more piece of evidence up their sleeve.
Hello, this call is from a correction facility.
Recordings of Nikki Stain's phone calls from jail.
Hello?
Hello, Mom.
And Nikki Stain just keeps talking.
This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording.
Can you hear me, Nick?
During the preliminary hearing, prosecutors introduced calls that Nikki Stain made to family members while he was being held in the Tulare County Jail. And on those calls, he doesn't hold back.
Yeah, I can hear you. You know what? Those hurting people and things like that was in my past. I know I need to get punished for it. I just know that I'll be here the rest of my life.
One could say that the jailhouse phone calls were a sense of admission because there was no denials.
But you're innocent till you're proven guilty in my book. You know what you did, we don't.
We're going to say that you're innocent until they prove otherwise, my opinion. It's the way America works.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty. You know, I did some bad things. I'm not trying to kind of like hide them. You know, I mean, I'm ashamed of them, but you know, they're there now, so it's just like, you know, quit running from it and just take it.
Are you innocent of any of those crimes?
No, not really, Mom. I was kind of like involved in all of them.
To us, that's an admission that he committed all of these crimes, including Debbie Dorian.
Those revealing phone calls could be key evidence if the case proceeds to trial.
But the defense insists that Nikki Stain never admitted to killing Debbie Dorian, including in that police interrogation.
I did wrong, okay? And even the things that I did back, you know, here in Visalia, that those things are haunting me forever. But the thing in Fresno there, I didn't know that went down. I didn't know that happened. I didn't feel remorse for that or anything like that or anything because I didn't know that it happened.
During the preliminary hearing, the defense was trying to attack the investigation, specifically with the arrest of Maurice Dixon initially and the DNA testing originally.
So that's a mistake.
I'm not going to say it's a mistake, no.
You refuse to say that arresting the wrong man on faulty lab work is a mistake? Did you get the right guy?
He was eventually cleared.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he was the wrong guy.
But prosecutors maintain that the DNA evidence in this case tells the whole story.
There was no other foreign DNA on Debbie's body. The only DNA located was Debbie Dorian's DNA and Nikki Dwayne Stain's DNA.
When the preliminary hearing wraps up, the judge decides there is enough evidence for the case to proceed to trial.
The defendant is held to answer on all counts and charges.
Prosecutors announced they're going to seek the death penalty. But ultimately, Nikki Stain is ready to make a deal.
Nikki Stain's case was heading toward a jury trial early next year, but now a possible deal with prosecutors.
Just 5 weeks after the judge had set a trial date, we got word that Nikki Stain would be entering a change of plea.
Stain's defense team had asked prosecutors if they would allow him to plead guilty to just the murder charge and dismiss the sexual assault charges.
I contacted the parents. Peter was on board because Nikki Stain would receive life without the possibility of parole, and he did not want to have to testify at jury trial. Sarah Loven had a different opinion, and she wanted him to admit and plead guilty to everything that he did.
And she wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Why did you feel so strongly that you wanted those sexual assaults?
Because those victims deserved to have him say, I did this, and I'm going to get sentenced for it.
I'm going to be punished.
That's right. And I am going to serve not just time for Debbie Dorian's murder, but for the crimes I committed against you.
Ultimately, Nikki Stain was willing to do that. He didn't want to go forward to trial.
The district attorney's office also agrees to forego the death penalty.
He would serve life without the possibility of parole.
People unlawfully and with malice aforethought committed murder against Deborah, Sarah, and Dorian. Mr. Stain, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Why plead guilty?
To save his life. To save his life. I believe if we had gone to trial, it would easily have been a death penalty verdict. I just knew that because we're emotion driven, it's almost impossible to be unbiased. We all have our biases. She was an attractive young woman. She was doing positive things in her life, going to school. Her life was just beginning. She had, parents that loved and adored her. And I just was fairly certain that he would end up with a death sentence.
The courtroom was full for Nikki Dwayne Stain's sentencing.
Court Department 62 is now in session. The Honorable Judge Harrell presiding.
Jane Doe number 1 steps up to the podium and delivers her impact statement with cameras carefully trained on her hands.
My life changed forever that day. I tried moving on. I have tried to forget, To me, every man was him. I was always scared. I wish I was dead. I wish he did kill me. It would have been a lot better than having these thoughts in my head and flashbacks. The night playing over and over again in my head.
Your statement was incredibly powerful.
Hopefully it got through to him that I wish he would suffer just as much as all of us did. I hope that he knows that I got him.
That's it. I think you did go one.
And you also said you wanted to speak on behalf of other survivors.
Yes.
And give voice to them.
If anything comes of this, I would just hope that people come forward and people will get the help that they need. Because it took me a long time.
But the final words spoken in that courtroom would stun everyone.
It was a raw moment.
I screamed and screamed. Everything went dark. I knew my life was over. I wanted people to know that Deb was a real person. She was a beautiful baby, a darling little girl. She went through all the things that children go through. These are her ballet slippers when she was 5. And these are her riding gloves. I just want people to know she had these little hands. They felt things, and they were sweet. We have waited and searched for this murderer for 28 years and 10 months, 29 Christmases, and almost 29 birthdays.
Sarah Lovin was the last to deliver an impact statement. She shared what she thought Debbie would have wanted to say, speaking in her daughter's voice.
Adrenaline flooded my body. I screamed and screamed, but he didn't stop. He wrapped my head in duct tape, covering my mouth. I couldn't breathe. Everything went dark. I would never take a hike with John, the love of my life. Spend time with my mom. I wouldn't have a wedding. I wouldn't be a beautiful bride. My dad wouldn't walk me down the aisle. I knew my death would break my mom's heart and change my dad forever. The pain that they suffer is deeper than anyone can know. Though he took my precious Deb, he did not take my soul. I am wiser and stronger than ever from having to go through this ordeal. He has the rest of his life to pay for what he did, and he will pay for his evil actions.
It was a powerful statement. It was a powerful and emotional moment for everyone in the courtroom.
At this point, sir, you are remanded into the custody of Fresno County Sheriff to begin serving your time.
He no longer has the power. Whatever he wants for power, it's behind bars. To my dear Vince, you know how much this case has meant to us. You know how many years it has taken, and you've carried us all through this, and I love you.
You're about to harvest pomegranates. What's that moment like? How fulfilling it must be.
It's exciting to see all the hard work come to fruition. You saw a dry, leafless bush get leaves, and now they're big, red, and beautiful. It's like a cold case again. You put all that work into it, and we'll see if there's a rainbow at the end of it.
Finally having him behind bars must have been a real capstone to your career.
There were many capstones, but this is the one at the top.
She was a precious person, sweet and loving and smart, and a wonderful young lady.
A mother's never-ending love. Debbie's mother, Sarah, did get to meet and hug that brave survivor, Beth, in court.
As for Nicky Stain, David, his plea agreement included a provision that he forfeits his right to appeal his conviction. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
अल्फ अल्लाह की जात तू ऐ झोर सदकै जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो अल्फ अल्लाह की जात तू झोर सदकै जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो हुक्म उस गै बाजना पत्थर अल्लाह ओ तेरो मेरो वजूद बनाण आलो 18,000 मखलूक गो ऐ मालिक सुनो रब सुनो जमीन आसमान आलो अर्श फर्श लो कलम महफूज कुर्सी जिया जून ना रिज़क खिलाण आलो दाल दुखां की गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रोलाओ गई है दाल दुखां की गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रोलाओ गई है ओ उसकी मारे गुलनाज है बहुत दुखिया ये मारा सीना माँ बर छिलाओ गई है नाओ बच्ची गो अफसा में मूद सोनो रोग उमरा गो सुनी लाओ गई है ओ जिला पुणछ गिरा शिंदरा सोनो ऐ दुखिया दिलाना अफजारो लाओ गई है दाल दर्द जो दयागा ऐ बोते ओ खाए पर बचागी नारे जो दई ओवे दाल दर्द जो दयागा ऐ बोते ओ खाए पर बचागी नारे जो दई होवे ओ माना सबर करार फिर नहीं रहा तो दस्ते जिगर की जद जो दई होवे ते बाप उसको मैं मुँह दियो हुसैन दुखिया अफसा जही बची सीने लाई होवे ओ दुख मुझ जावेद माँ बाप नावे ओ बचा किसे की नारे जो दई होवे तेरे हो रब गा कर तमाम होए 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई रे हो रब गा कर तमाम होए 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई ओ अल्लाह पाक ने दिती एक बच्चियों सोनी ऐ गुनाहगारां अर्ज मंजूर होई दिन मां दाखिल रही महारात आए 10 बजे ऑपरेशन होयो ते टेंशन दूर होई ओ दीती खबर फिर आनी उन डॉक्टरां ने हो गई बची पर बड़ी कमजोरी होई सलाह दीती वीर डॉक्टर है कमजोर बची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती सलाह दीती डॉक्टर है कमजोर बची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती 18-19 तक रखी पुणछ अंदर और पर इकी नर जोरी कराओ दीती आई रात 9 बजे मामू आई नानी दोए गड्डी तरफ जोरी चलाओ दीती ओ मासा देरी ना लाई ले चल गया ओ 12 बजे जोरी पहुंचाओ दीती किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया आई किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया रात 12 बजे जोरी पुजया कि जल्दी डॉक्टरां कोल रवाने होया आई डॉक्टर नब्ज तके मुतू ये बोल न सके असली राज तू बे वो हैरान होया ओ अमानत रब की है तम सबर करियो ए आपसा बची गारू वे रवानी होया किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जायमना छोड़ गई है ऐ किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जायमना छोड़ गई है ये एम्बुलेंस करी वापस पुणछ चलना मारी किस्मत आज मुखरे मोड़ गई है आई गुल नाज वाणी अरे ए मान बाकी मेरी खुशी ना किंगा तू रोड़ गई है दाखिल बीच अस्पताल थी पुणछ अंदर हे मांगुल नाज गो दिल क्यों तोड़ गई है बई ना सुबह गए ऐ 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके अप्रैल 22 ना सुबह गए 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके माना 10 बजे एम्बुलेंस आने तेरा तकन गाया अफजायर मान सदके ते कितना दुख था महंगा ऐ काल जामा जाने वाया रब रहमान सदके और वे बाप महमूद परवेज नानी नाले रोवे सजाद यमान सदके ते कफन दफन गोविलो हुणे यार गयो इना दुखाना हुण मीटौरे किसरा कफन दफन गोविलो हुणे हार गयो इना दुखाना हुण मीटौरे किसरा ओ जीता मांगे बचा गो टूर जानो इस शेर बर कलम चनो किसरा ते अच्छा रब वाले हुणे ऐ छोड़ गई है तीना सिना नालू हुण लो किसरा सबर या तो नी दिल मां याद तेरी रोता दिला ना चुप करूं किसरा फिया मान इना दुखाने ऐ मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे आपका दफनाओ छोड़ी ऐ फिया मान इना दुखाने ऐ मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे आपका दफनाओ छोड़ी वतन पुणच गिरा शिंदरा अंदर ओ सोनी निकी जी कबर बनाओ छोड़ी सबर करियो महमूद गुल नाज दोए मानत रब गी रब ने छुपाओ छोड़ी ओए पिया मान जावेद इजाजत ले ले जख्म मोड़ी भी क्यों रे दुखाओ छोड़ी